You know what's funny about revenge? It's not the moment you execute it. It's not even the look on their faces when they realize what you've done. It's the smile you wear while they have no idea what's coming. King. I wore that smile at my ex-fiance's wedding. Everyone thought I was being graceful, mature, moving on with dignity, but the truth? I was watching two people celebrate the beginning of their life together. While I held every single key to destroy it, my name is Nathan. And this is the story of how I turned the worst betrayal of my life into the sweetest, most calculated revenge you could ever. 3 years ago, I was engaged to the love of my life. Her name was Claire. We met in college, dated for 5 years, and I proposed on the beach where we had our first date. She said yes with tears in her eyes. I thought I was the luckiest man alive. We planned everything together. The venue, the flowers, the guest list. We even started looking at houses. I was working 70-hour weeks at a tech startup, saving every penny for our future. Claire worked at a marketing agency. She was brilliant, beautiful, and I trusted her completely, but trust is a funny thing. It's invisible until it breaks, and when it breaks, you see everything you missed before it started small. Claire began staying late at work, weekend calls, business trips that felt too frequent. I didn't think much of it. I was busy too. We were both building careers, right? That's what engaged couples do. They sacrifice now so they can live better later, except Claire wasn't sacrificing anything. She was building a future. Just not with me. I found out 6 weeks before our wedding. I came home early one evening to surprise her. I had flowers. I had reservations at her favorite restaurant. I was ready to remind her why we fell in love in the first place. But when I opened the door, I heard laughter, her laughter, and a man's voice I recognized immediately. Marcus, my best friend since high school, the guy who stood beside me at family dinners, the guy I asked to be my best man, the guy who looked me in the eye every single week and said, "You and Claire are perfect together." I didn't storm in, I didn't yell. I stood there in the hallway, frozen, listening to them talk about how hard it was to keep pretending, how they couldn't wait for the wedding to be over so they could finally be together without hiding. Claire said, "I just need to get through this." Nathan's so focused on the startup he won't even notice when I'm gone. Marcus laughed. "Yeah, poor guy. Works his life away while we get to have all the fun." That was the moment something inside me broke. Not my heart, that came later. It was my belief in fairness and honesty, in the idea that good people win and cheaters lose. I realized right then that the world doesn't punish betrayal. People get away with it all the time unless someone makes them pay. I didn't confront them that night. King. I quietly backed out of the apartment, got in my car, and sat in a parking lot for 2 hours, staring at nothing. Then I made a decision. I wasn't going to cancel the wedding. I wasn't going to scream or beg or ask why. I was going to let them think they won. And then slowly, carefully, I was going to take everything. The hardest part of revenge isn't the execution, it's the patience. For the next 6 weeks, I played the role of the clueless, loving fiancé. I smiled at Claire every morning. I texted her sweet messages. I finalized wedding details like nothing was wrong, and every single night I planned. I started by gathering information. I needed to understand everything about their lives, their finances, their plans, their weaknesses. And Claire didn't know, but I had access to her laptop. We shared passwords for everything, streaming accounts, bills, cloud storage. She never thought to change them. I spent hours going through her emails, her messages, her calendar. I wasn't just looking for proof of the affair. I was looking for leverage, and I found it. Claire and Marcus had been planning this for over a year. They had secret email accounts, private photo albums. They even had a joint savings account I didn't know about. But here's the kicker. Marcus was broke. He worked in sales at a luxury car dealership. On paper, he looked successful, nice clothes, expensive watch, flashy social media posts. But in reality, he was drowning in debt, credit cards maxed out, car lease he couldn't afford. He even owed money to a loan shark for gambling debts. Claire didn't know any of this. She thought Marcus was this successful, charming guy who could give her the life she wanted, the life she thought I couldn't provide because I was too focused on work. That's when I realized something. Claire wasn't just a cheater, she was a gold digger, and Marcus was fool's gold. This gave me an idea. If Claire wanted security and wealth, I'd give it to her. Or at least, I'd make her think she was getting it. I started working even harder at the startup. Not because I cared anymore, but because I needed to position myself. My company was on the verge of a major funding round. If things went well, I'd be looking at serious money, life-changing money. But I made sure Claire didn't know the details. I kept talking about how stressful work was, how uncertain the future felt. I even pretended we might need to downsize our wedding budget. Meanwhile, I let Marcus think he was winning. I invited him out for drinks. I laughed at his jokes. I asked him for advice about marriage. I even told him I was worried Claire and I were drifting apart. She seems distant lately, I said one night. She seems distant lately, I said one night, watching his face carefully. Do you think I'm doing something wrong? Marcus looked me straight in the eye and said, Nah, man, she loves you. You're overthinking it. I wanted to punch him, but instead I smiled and ordered another round. 2 weeks before the wedding, I did something bold. I called off the wedding, but not publicly. I sat Claire down and told her I wanted to postpone. I said I was feeling overwhelmed with work, and I didn't want to start our marriage stressed and distracted. I love you, I said, holding her hands, but I want to give you the wedding and the life you deserve. Let's wait 6 months, let me get the company stable, then we'll do this right? I watched her face carefully. For a split second, I saw relief. She tried to hide it, but I saw it. Are you sure? She asked softly. I'm sure, I said. I just want us to be happy. She hugged me. She said she understood. She said she loved me, but that night, I checked her messages. She texted Marcus immediately. He postponed the wedding. We have more time. Marcus, perfect. Let him keep thinking he has you. That's when I knew for certain they were planning to stay together until my company succeeded. Then Claire would leave me, take half of everything in the breakup, and run off with Marcus. They weren't just betraying me, they were trying to rob me, so I changed the plan. I didn't postpone the wedding. 3 days later, I called Claire and said I'd made a mistake, that I didn't want to wait, that I wanted to marry her now, exactly as planned. She was surprised, but she agreed. And Marcus? He had no choice but to keep playing along. The wedding was back on, but this time I wasn't the groom getting played. I was the architect of their destruction. Let me tell you something about weddings. They're not just about love. They're about performance. Everyone's watching, everyone's judging, everyone's got an opinion about whether the couple will make it. And on my wedding day, I gave the performance of a lifetime. I showed up early, I greeted every guest. I shook hands, hugged family members, laughed at jokes. I played the role of the happy, nervous groom perfectly. Claire looked stunning. White dress, perfect makeup, radiant smile. She walked down the aisle, and I watched her with this strange, calm clarity. I saw her for exactly what she was, a beautiful illusion, a person I thought I knew but never really did. Marcus stood beside me as my best man. He clapped me on the shoulder and whispered, "You ready for this, brother?" I looked him dead in the eye and said, "More than you know, the ceremony was flawless. We said our vows, we exchanged rings, the officiant pronounced us husband and wife. And when I kissed Claire, I felt nothing, not anger, not sadness, just cold, calculated focus. The reception was where things got interesting. I gave a speech, a beautiful, heartfelt speech about love and trust and partnership. I thanked Claire for being my rock. I thanked Marcus for being my best friend, people cried. They cheered, they raised their glasses. And the whole time I was thinking, enjoy this moment. It's the last happy one you'll ever have, or can. After the speeches, I pulled Marcus aside. "Hey man," I said casually. "I need a favor. Anything," he said, grinning. "Claire and I are going on our honeymoon next week. Could you check on our apartment while we're gone? Water the plants, grab the mail, that kind of thing?" "Of course," he said. "No problem." I handed him a key. "Thanks, brother. I really appreciate it." He pocketed the key, completely oblivious. What Marcus didn't know was that I'd just handed him the key to his own downfall. Later that night, after the reception ended, Claire and I went back to our hotel room. She was exhausted, happy, glowing. She fell asleep almost immediately. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what came next. The honeymoon was in 2 days. We were going to Bali, 2 weeks of beaches, sunsets, and romantic dinners, except we weren't going to Bali. At least not together. The next morning, I told Claire I had to run a quick errand for work. She didn't question it. She was too busy posting wedding photos on social media, soaking in the congratulations and likes. Kakane. I drove to a law office downtown. I met with a lawyer I'd been consulting for weeks. His name was Richard, and he specialized in asset protection and prenuptial agreements. "Did she sign?" he asked. I nodded. 3 days before the wedding, she didn't even read it. Richard smiled. "Wabird Chang kind damabers." "Then, you're covered. Everything you earn from the startup is protected. She gets nothing." I'd had Claire sign a prenup under the guise of protecting both of us. I made it sound like standard procedure, something my investors required. She signed it without a second thought. Too distracted by wedding, planning to pay attention, that prenup was bulletproof. And it meant that when this all came crashing down, Claire would walk away with exactly what she deserved, nothing. But I wasn't done yet. I had one more card to play, Richard. I said, "I need you to do something else." What's that? I need you to buy a property, quietly, under an LLC. No paper trail back to me. What kind of property? I slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a listing for a small commercial building downtown. It was cheap, run down, but it had potential. This one, I said. Richard raised an eyebrow. What's the play? Marcus works in luxury car sales. His dealership's lease is up in 6 months. They're looking for a new location, and you want to be their landlord. I smiled. Exactly. Cackett. Richard leaned back in his chair, impressed. You're not just burning bridges, you're buying the land underneath them. Exactly. 3 days later, Claire and I were supposed to fly to Bali. But on the morning of our flight, I got a call. Mr. Nathan, the voice said, it was my company's lead investor. We need you in San Francisco. The deal's closing early. This is it. I hung up and turned to Claire. Babe, I'm so sorry. I have to go to San Francisco. It's the funding round. If I don't go, we lose everything. Claire's face fell. What about the honeymoon? You should still go, I said. Take a friend. Enjoy Bali. I'll join you in a few days once this is wrapped up. She hesitated, but I could see the wheels turning. She wanted that trip, and more importantly, she saw an opportunity. Ank, are you sure? She asked. Positive, I said, kissing her forehead. You deserve this, she smiled. Okay. I'll ask Jenna to come with me, but we both knew she wasn't going to ask Jenna. She was going to ask Marcus, and I was counting on it. And here's the thing about people who cheat. They're predictable, they think they're clever, sneaking around, keeping secrets. But once you know the pattern, they're easy to manipulate. Claire thought she was so careful. Deleting messages. Using fake names in her contacts, coordinating schedules, but I knew every move before she made it. The morning I left for San Francisco, I didn't actually go to San Francisco. I went to a hotel 20 minutes away. I checked in under a fake name, set up my laptop, and watched. I'd installed tracking software on Claire's phone months ago, hidden deep in a harmless-looking app update. She had no idea I could see her location in real time. I could see her messages. I could even access her camera and microphone if I needed to. I know what you're thinking. That's extreme. That's invasive, and you're right? But so is sleeping with your fiancé's best friend, for a year and planning to take half his money. So yeah, I didn't feel bad about it. Within 2 hours of my departure, Claire texted Marcus, he's gone. I'm flying to Bali tomorrow. Want to come? Marcus replied immediately, hell yes. Book my tickets. And I watched those messages appear on my screen, and I smiled. Phase 2 was in motion. While Claire and Marcus were planning their secret romantic getaway, I was finalizing the real plan. I called my startup's legal team. I need contracts drawn up, employment agreements, NDAs, non-competes. I need them ready by tomorrow. For who? They asked. For a new hire, I said. Someone I'm bringing on as head of business development. Who? Marcus. Porstatan kabinada kuppersikes. There was silence on the other end of the line. You're hiring your best man? Yes, I said calmly. He has experience in sales. He's charismatic. He'll be perfect for the role. They didn't need to know the rest of the plan. They just needed to draft the paperwork. The next day, Claire and Marcus flew to Bali. They posted photos on private Instagram stories they thought I couldn't see. Sunsets, cocktails, beach walks. They looked happy, carefree, in love. Let them have their moment. And while they were living it up in Bali, I was back home executing the next phase. I called Marcus. Hey, man, I said, keeping my voice upbeat. How's Bali? There was a pause. Wait, how did you know I'm in Bali? Claire told me I lied smoothly. She said you helped her book the trip after I had to bail. Thanks for being there for her, man. I really appreciate it. I could hear the relief in his voice. Oh, yeah. No problem. Just helping out. Actually, I said I wanted to talk to you about something. I've been thinking about the company. We're growing fast, and I need someone I can trust to lead business development. Someone with sales experience. Someone loyal. Okay, Marcus, I want to offer you a job. Silence. Wait, seriously? 6-figure salary, stock options, benefits, the whole package. You'd be perfect for this. I could practically hear him salivating. And Nathan, man, I don't know what to say. If I spree-per-peer or spray-peered, and I don't know what to say. That's incredible. Say yes, I said. Come back from Bali and let's make this official. I'll have contracts ready. Yes, absolutely yes. I hung up and I laughed. Marcus thought he was getting his dream job. What he was actually getting was a custom-built cage. The employment contract I had drafted was brutal. It included a non-compete clause that would prevent him from working ... in sales for 3 years if he ever left the company. It included a clawback provision on stock options. It included a clause that allowed me to terminate him for conduct unbecoming without severance. In other words, once Marcus signed that contract, I owned him and he'd sign it. I knew he would. Because he was desperate for money, desperate to look successful in front of Claire, desperate to prove he wasn't the broke, gambling-addicted mess he actually was. While Marcus was dreaming about his big break, I turned my attention to Claire. I called her that evening. "Hey, babe," I said, "how's Bali?" "It's Bali," she said, her voice beautiful, she said, her voice sugary sweet. "I miss you, though." "Yeah, I miss you, too. Hey, I have good news. The funding round closed. We're officially set. The company's about to explode." "That's amazing," she said, and I could hear the greed in her voice. "Yeah. And I've been thinking, when you get back, let's start looking at houses, real houses, not apartments. I want us to have our dream home." "Really?" she asked, her voice rising with excitement. "Really, you deserve it. After everything you've put up with while I was building this company, you deserve the world," she gushed. She thanked me. She told me how much she loved me. And the whole time I was thinking, you won't see a single penny. And by the time Claire and Marcus returned from Bali, everything was in place. Marcus signed the employment contract without reading it. He was too excited, too eager to show off his new title. Claire started shopping for houses, texting me listings of million-dollar properties, completely unaware that she had no legal claim to any of my assets. And me, I kept smiling, kept playing the loving husband, kept acting like everything was perfect. But behind the scenes, I was tightening the noose. I knew their next move. They were going to wait until my company went public or got acquired. Then Claire would file for divorce, expecting a massive payout. But here's what they didn't know. One, the prenup protected everything. 2, Marcus's employment contract gave me total control over his career. 3, I just bought the building where Marcus's car dealership was relocating. And 4, I had evidence. Months and months of messages, photos, receipts, a digital paper trail of their entire affair. They thought they were playing me, but I was 10 steps ahead. And soon, very soon, the hammer was going to drop. 3 months after the wedding, my life looked perfect from the outside. My company was thriving. We'd just closed a Series B funding round worth $20 million. My name was in tech blogs. People were calling me a rising star in the industry. Claire and I bought a house. Not just any house. A 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom modern masterpiece in the best neighborhood in the city. Granite countertops, walk-in closets, a backyard with a pool. Claire posted photos of it on Instagram with captions like "Dreams do come true" and "Blessed beyond measure." Marcus started his new job at my company. He had a corner office, a company car, an expense account. He was living the life he'd always wanted but could never afford. To everyone watching, we were the picture of success, the perfect couple, the loyal friend, the thriving business. But underneath, the cracks were forming and I was the one creating them. It started small. At work, I began giving Marcus impossible assignments, deadlines he couldn't meet, clients who were notoriously difficult, sales targets that were just out of reach. Every time he failed, I'd call him into my office. "Marcus, what's going on?" I'd say, concerned. "This isn't like you. Are you okay?" He'd make excuses. Bad luck. Difficult clients. Timing issues. "I believe in you," I'd say, putting a hand on his shoulder. "But you need to step it up. The investors are watching. I can only protect you for so long." The pressure started getting to him. He looked tired, stressed. He started snapping at coworkers, missing meetings, making mistakes. Meanwhile, I was feeding Claire a very specific narrative. "Marcus is struggling at work," I told her one night over dinner. "I feel bad. I thought he'd be great, but he's just not performing. I might have to let him go." Claire's face went pale. "Let him go? But he just started." "I know," I said, sighing. "But business is business. I can't keep someone on just because he's my friend. It's not fair to the rest of the team." I watched her carefully. She was panicking. If Marcus lost his job, her whole plan fell apart. She couldn't leave me for a broke, unemployed guy. Maybe Dester Haas. She couldn't leave me for a broke, unemployed guy. Maybe give him another chance? She suggested, trying to sound casual. "I don't know," I said. "He'd have to really prove himself." That night, Claire texted Marcus. I watched the messages appear on my screen in real time. "Yeah, Nathan says you're struggling at work. What's going on?" "Marcus, he's setting me up to fail." "Every assignment is impossible, Claire. You need to fix this. We can't afford for you to lose this job." "Marcus, I'm trying, but I think he knows." "Claire, he doesn't know. He can't know. Just keep it together." I smiled. They were starting to turn on each other. The next move was even better. Remember the building I bought? The one where Marcus's old car dealership was relocating? The dealership's lease officially started that month. They moved in, set up shop, started selling cars, and then I raised the rent, not immediately. I waited 60 days, right at the edge of the initial lease terms. Then I hit them with a market adjustment clause buried in the contract. Rent doubled. The dealership owner was furious. He tried to negotiate. He threatened to break the lease, but the contract was ironclad. They either paid or they left. And leaving meant losing their prime downtown location. They paid. But they had to cut costs, and one of those costs was Marcus's old commissions. Marcus had been counting on residual commissions from deals he'd closed before leaving the dealership. It was a significant chunk of his income now, gone. He was stuck at my company, underperforming, stressed, and barely making ends meet. And he had no idea I was the landlord who'd squeezed his old dealership dry. As Marcus spiraled, I turned up the pressure on Claire. I started asking questions. Babe, have you talked to Marcus lately? He seems really off. Why do you think he's been so distant? We used to hang out all the time, and now he barely responds to my texts. The cat, do you think something's going on with him, like personal stuff? Every question was designed to make her squirm, to make her wonder if I suspected. She started acting paranoid, checking her phone constantly, deleting messages immediately, avoiding eye contact. One evening I came home early and found her on the phone in the bedroom. She hung up quickly when she saw me. Who was that? I asked casually. Just Jenna, she said too quickly. Oh, what's she up to? Nani more perm burr, girl talk thousand. Oh, what's she up to? Nothing. Just girl talk. Kaneen and Tinanger smiled in Tinderschen Coven. I nodded, smiled, and let it go, but that night I checked the phone records. She'd called Marcus. They'd talked for 40 minutes. They were getting sloppy. The next day I made my move, and I called a company-wide meeting. Big announcement. Everyone was buzzing with speculation. When the team gathered, I stood at the front of the room and smiled. I have incredible news, I said. We've been approached by a major tech company. They want to acquire us. The deal is worth $100 million. The room erupted in cheers. People hugged, high-fived, celebrated. Marcus was in the back, grinning like he'd won the lottery. This is life-changing for all of us, I continued. Everyone with stock options is about to see a significant payout. This is what we've been working toward. I made eye contact with Marcus, especially you, Marcus. You've been instrumental in our growth, he beamed. Naman. What I didn't tell him, what I didn't tell anyone, was that his stock options were contingent on him still being employed when the acquisition closed. And the acquisition wouldn't close for 6 months, 6 months where I'd continue to make his life hell, 6 months where he'd be one screw-up away from termination, 6 months where he'd have to choose, stay miserable and get the payout, or quit and lose everything. That night, Claire was ecstatic. $100 million. She kept saying, Nathan, this is insane. We're going to be rich, actually rich we are, I said, pulling her close. Everything we've worked for is finally paying off. She kissed me. She told me how proud she was, how much she loved me, and I played along because I needed her to believe. I needed her to think that in 6 months, when the acquisition closed, she'd be walking away with millions. But here's the truth. The acquisition was real, the money was real, but Claire wasn't getting a penny. The prenup was airtight. My lawyer had structured everything so that the acquisition payout was classified as premarital business assets. Legally, it was mine and mine alone. Claire had no claim, and Marcus? His stock options would vest only if he survived the 6 months without getting fired. But I wasn't going to let him survive. I was going to push him until he broke. Until he either quit or did something that gave me legal grounds to terminate him for cause. And when that happened, he'd lose everything. The house of cards was almost complete. All I had to do now was wait for the right moment to knock it down. Ika the prakashantra the fur the prakan, and they say patience is a virtue, but when you're waiting for revenge, patience is torture. And every day I watched Claire and Marcus pretend they weren't together, pretend they weren't counting down the days until they could cash out and disappear. Every day I smiled and played the clueless husband, the supportive boss, the loyal friend. But inside I was counting down too, counting down to the moment when everything they thought they had would disappear. That moment came 4 months into the 6-month waiting period. It was a Friday afternoon. I called Marcus into my office, closed the door. I said he did looking nervous. He always looked nervous now. 4 months of impossible deadlines and constant pressure had worn him down. He'd lost weight. Stopped going to the gym, started drinking more. Marcus, I said, leaning back in my chair. We need to talk. About what? Your performance? He tensed. Nathan, I know I've had some rough patches, but I held up a hand. Let me finish. Your performance has been concerning, but I understand you're under a lot of pressure. We all are. He relaxed slightly. However, I continued, there's something I need you to do. A big client, a huge deal. If you close this, it proves you belong here. If you don't, I let the sentence hang. What's the deal? He asked. I slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a contract for a corporate client, a tech company looking to overhaul their entire sales infrastructure. It was worth $2 million in revenue. It was also completely fake. I'd created the client, I'd created the contract, I'd created the entire scenario. This company is looking to sign by the end of the month, I said. That gives you 2 weeks. Close this deal and you're golden. Your stock options are safe, your job is safe, everything's good. And if I don't? He asked quietly. I looked him straight in the eye. Then I have to let you go. I'm sorry, Marcus, but that's the reality. He took the folder with shaking hands. I'll close it, I promise. Ken Furfo Connor Tiendri Tun. I know you will, I said, smiling. I believe in you. Cake. He left my office, and I watched him walk back to his desk, shoulders slumped, defeated. He had no idea he was chasing a ghost. That night, I told Claire about the deal. Marcus has one last chance, I said over dinner. If he closes this deal, he's set. If he doesn't, I have to fire him. Claire's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Fire him? I don't have a choice. The board's been asking questions. They want results, but the acquisition, his stock options, if he's not employed when the acquisition closes, he gets nothing, I said simply. That's how it works. I watched her face go through a dozen emotions, panic, anger, desperation. Maybe you could help him, she suggested. Give him some guidance, Claire. I can't hold his hand through every deal. He's a grown man. Either he can do the job or he can't. She went quiet, pushed her food around her plate. That night, I heard her on the phone in the bathroom. The water was running, but I could still hear her muffled voice. She was talking to Marcus. Ken, you have to close this deal. Whatever it takes, we can't lose this. I smiled and went to bed. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Marcus fall apart. He called the fake client number I'd set up. It went to a virtual assistant service I'd hired to string him along. The decision maker is traveling. They're in meetings all week. They're reviewing proposals. They'll get back to you. Every day, Marcus looked more desperate, more exhausted, more broken. He started making mistakes, sending emails to the wrong people, missing actual client meetings, snapping at colleagues. His life was imploding, and he couldn't see that I was the one holding the match. Then 3 days before the deadline, I played my final card. I sent an email to the entire company, a confidential email that I knew would leak. The subject line, acquisition update, timeline changed. Changed. In the email, I explained that the acquiring company wanted to close the deal early. Instead of 6 months, we were looking at 4 weeks. Everyone who was still employed at the company would get their payout. Anyone who left or was terminated before then would get nothing. Marcus read that email, and I watched the color drain from his face. He had 3 days to close an impossible deal or lose everything. That night, he did something desperate. He tried to fabricate the deal. He forged a client's signature. He submitted fake documents. He created a false contract and tried to pass it off as legitimate, and I was ready. I'd set up monitoring software on his computer. I saw every forged document, every fake email, every fraudulent move. I let him submit everything. I let him think he'd pulled it off. And then the next morning, I called an emergency meeting with HR and the legal team. We have a problem, I said, pulling up the evidence on the screen. Marcus has been submitting fraudulent contracts, fake clients, forged signatures. This is a fireable offense. HR's face went pale. Are you sure? I'm sure. I have all the documentation. Timestamps, everything. What do you want to do? I paused as if I was struggling with the decision. I want him gone today. Terminate him for cause. No severance, no stock options, nothing. They nodded. We'll handle it, and heckle it. An hour later, Marcus was called into a conference room. I wasn't there. I wanted to be, but I couldn't risk showing my hand too early. But I heard about it later. How they presented the evidence, how he tried to deny it, how he finally broke down and admitted he was desperate. I needed this job, he'd said. I needed the money. They didn't care. He was escorted out of the building that afternoon. Security walked him to his car. He didn't even get to clean out his desk, and just like that, Marcus lost everything. His job, his stock options, his future. I watched from my office window as he drove away, and I smiled. But I wasn't done yet. That evening, I came home and found Claire in the living room, crying. Babe, what's wrong? I asked, sitting beside her. It's Marcus, she sobbed. He got fired. Did you know? Yan, I heard, I said softly. I'm sorry. I tried to give him chances, but he made some bad decisions. What's he going to do now? She asked, her voice breaking. I don't know, I said, putting my arm around her. But that's not our problem. We have to focus on us. On our future. She nodded, wiping her tears, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was realizing that her plan was falling apart. Marcus was broke, unemployed, and toxic. She couldn't leave me for him now, but she also couldn't stay married to me. Not anymore. Deep down, I think she knew I was smarter than she'd given me credit for. She knew something was wrong, she just didn't know how wrong, not yet. There's a moment in every revenge story where the person being destroyed realizes what's happening. Sometimes it's loud, dramatic, a big confrontation, but sometimes it's quiet, a slow, creeping realization that they've been played, that every move they made was anticipated, that they never had control. For Claire, that moment came 2 weeks after Marcus was fired. She'd been distant, quiet. She stopped posting on social media, stopped planning our future, stopped pretending. One night, she came home late. I was in the living room reading a book. "We need to talk," she said. I looked up. "Okay, what's going on?" She sat down across from me, her hands folded in her lap, I think. "I think we should separate." I closed the book slow. I think we should separate. I closed the book slowly. Separate? Why? I don't think we're happy. Either of us, I nodded, as if I was considering her words. "You might be right. But can I ask you something?" "What? Is this about Marcus?" Her face went white. "What? No." "Why would you, Claire?" I said gently. "I've known for months." Silence. "Can?" She stared at me, her mouth slightly open, like she couldn't process what I'd just said. "Known what?" she whispered. "About you and Marcus. About the affair. About your plans to leave me once the acquisition closed." Tears filled her eyes, not tears of guilt, tears of panic. "Nathan, I don't," I said, of a hand. "Don't insult me by lying. I know everything. I've known since before the wedding." "Then why?" She trailed off, confused. "Why did you marry me?" I smiled. "Because I wanted to see how far you'd go. I wanted to see if you'd actually go through with it. And you did. Every single step." She Samananga, she stood up shaking. "You're insane." "No," I said calmly. "I'm thorough. I want a divorce," she said, her voice rising. "And I want half of everything," I laughed, actually laughed. "Half of everything?" I repeated. "Claire, you signed a prenup. You don't get half, you don't get anything. That prenup won't hold up in court," she shot back. "My lawyer will tear it apart." "Your lawyer?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "You've already talked to a lawyer?" She didn't answer. "Let me save you some time," I said, standing up and walking to my office. I came back with a folder. "This is the prenup you signed. It was reviewed by 3 separate attorneys. It's ironclad. Any judge will uphold it." I tossed the folder on the coffee table. "You get nothing, Claire. Not the house, not the money, nothing." She grabbed the folder, her hands shaking, and started reading. I watched her face as the reality sank in. "This can't be legal," she stammered. "It is." And that's not all. I pulled out my phone and opened a folder. Inside were months of screenshots, text messages, photos, GPS locations, bank statements. "I have evidence of your affair, dates, times, locations. I have proof that you and Marcus were planning to defraud me. I have everything." Her face went from pale to gray. If you try to fight me in court," I continued, "I'll make all of this public. Every message, every lie, every moment you betrayed me. Your family will know, your friends will know, your coworkers will know." "You wouldn't," she whispered. "Try me." She collapsed back onto the couch, her head in her hands. "Why?" she asked, her voice broken. "Why did you broke?" Ashen asked, her voice broken. "Why did you do this?" "Because you chose to betray me," I said simply. "You made a choice. You chose greed, you chose lies, you chose Marcus. And now you get to live with the consequences." She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "I loved you once." "No, you didn't," I said. "You loved the idea of me, the security, the future. But you never loved me." She didn't argue. "Pack your things," I said. "You have until tomorrow to get out." After that, the locks change. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked a register discursor and a ben like umbrellum. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked desperately. "That's not my problem." "Maybe Marcus will take you in." She flinched at his name. "Oh, right," I said, as if I'd just remembered. "Marcus is broke. And jobless, and probably going to be facing legal trouble soon for fraud. So maybe not." She stared at me like I was a stranger. "I don't even know who you are," she said. "I'm the man you underestimated," I replied, "and that was your biggest mistake." She left that night, packed 2 suitcases and walked out the door. I didn't stop her, didn't say goodbye, I just watched her go. And when the door closed behind her, I poured myself a drink and sat in the silence of the house we'd bought together. The house that was now mine, completely. The next morning I filed for divorce, citing adultery, attaching all the evidence. And Claire tried to fight it. She hired a lawyer. She made claims. She tried to paint me as controlling and vindictive, but the evidence was overwhelming. The prenup was solid. Yeah, the judge ruled in my favor. The divorce was finalized in 6 weeks. Claire got nothing. Not the house. Not the money. Not even an apology. She moved in with a friend, then another friend, then her parents. Marcus stopped answering her calls. He couldn't afford to support her. He couldn't even support himself. The last I heard, she was working retail and living in a studio apartment across town. And Marcus? He tried to get another sales job. But word had spread. People in the industry knew what happened. Knew he committed fraud. No one would hire him. He eventually moved back to his hometown, took a job at a call center. Both of them destroyed. And me? I kept building. Revenge, when done right, isn't just about destruction. It's about rebuilding. Taking what they tried to steal from you and turning it into something even better. After the divorce, I threw myself into my company. The acquisition went through exactly as planned, $100 million. My share was significant, life-changing, but I didn't stop there. I took that money and invested it. I bought more properties, started new businesses, built an empire that Claire and Marcus couldn't even imagine. Within a year, I was worth more than I'd ever dreamed, not just financially, but personally. I met new people, made real friends. Now, Miss Lynn Bisa Sevens the Pias Durimon or Mr. Monarna Secton Pivent and Tax. Made real friends. People who didn't lie, didn't scheme, didn't betray. I started dating again. Slowly, carefully. I didn't trust easily anymore. But I didn't close myself off either. And every time I looked back at what happened with Claire and Marcus, I didn't feel anger. I felt satisfaction. They tried to play me, tried to steal my future, and instead they lost everything. But there was one more piece of the puzzle, one more move I'd made that they never knew about. Remember the building I bought, the one Marcus's old dealership was leasing? 6 months after the divorce, I sold that building to a developer who wanted to turn it into luxury condos. The sale price triple what I'd paid for it, and the dealership, they had to relocate. Again, at a higher cost. I made a fortune off the very place that had indirectly funded Marcus's lifestyle. Poetic, isn't it? But here's where the story gets even better. A year after everything fell apart, I got a message on LinkedIn, and it was from Marcus. The message was long, rambling, full of apologies and excuses. He said he was sorry, that he'd made terrible decisions, that he'd lost everything and was trying to rebuild his life. He asked if there was any way I could forgive him, if maybe somehow we could move past it. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, delete it, pretend he didn't exist. But another part of me, the part that had orchestrated this entire revenge, wanted him to know. So I replied, Marcus, I appreciate your message, but let me be clear. I will never forgive you, not because I'm holding a grudge, but because forgiveness implies that what you did was forgivable. You didn't just betray me. You plotted to steal from me. You lied to my face every single day. You stood beside me at my wedding while planning to destroy my life. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. And choices have consequences. You lost your job because you committed fraud. You lost Claire because you had nothing left to offer her. You lost your future because you gambled it on a plan that was doomed from the start. I didn't ruin your life, Marcus. You did. I just made sure you couldn't ruin mine. I hit send and blocked him. I never heard from him again. As for Claire, I saw her once more, by accident. I was at a coffee shop downtown, and she walked in. She didn't see me at first. She looked different, tired, older, like life had worn her down. When she finally noticed me, she froze. For a moment, I thought she might walk over, might say something, but she didn't. She just turned around and left, and I realized something in that moment. She was afraid of me. Not because I'd threatened her, not because I'd done anything violent or cruel, but because I'd proven violent or cruel, but because I'd proven that I was smarter. More strategic, more patient. I'd taken everything she thought she understood about me and flipped it upside down, and that terrified her. Good. Over time, people started asking me about what happened, friends, colleagues, even some reporters who'd heard bits and pieces of the story. How did you do it? They'd ask. How did you stay so calm? And my answer was always the same. I decided that losing my temper would mean losing control, and I wasn't going to lose anything else. The truth is, revenge isn't about anger, it's about clarity. When you're angry, you make mistakes, you act impulsively, you give your enemies ammunition, and But when you're calm, when you're strategic, when you plan every move, you become unstoppable. Okay, I didn't destroy Claire and Marcus because I was angry. I destroyed them because they deserved it and because I could. Today, my life looks nothing like it did 3 years ago. I run a successful company. I own multiple properties. I travel. I invest. I build. I've dated. I've learned to trust again slowly, carefully. And I've realized something important. The best revenge isn't just making them suffer. It's making them irrelevant. And Claire and Marcus are footnotes in my story now. A chapter I've moved past. They're not worth my anger, not worth my time, not worth anything. But the lessons I learned from them, those are priceless. I learned that people will betray you, even people you trust. I learned that loyalty is rare. And when you find it, you hold on to it. I learned that patience is more powerful than rage. And I learned that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is let people think they're winning until the moment you take it all away. So what's the lesson here? Is it that revenge is always the answer? That if someone wrongs you, you should dedicate months of your life to destroying them? No, not exactly. The lesson is this: you always have a choice in how you respond to betrayal. You can fall apart. You can let it break you. You can become bitter and angry and let it poison the rest of your life. Or you can take control. Okay, you can decide that no one gets to write the ending of your story except you. What Claire and Marcus did was horrible. It was cruel. It was calculated, but it didn't define me. I defined me, and I chose to turn their betrayal into my greatest lesson, my greatest strength. Now, I'm not saying everyone should do what I did. My path was extreme. Myers Bosch Screamesh, what did? My path was extreme. It required patience, strategy, resources. Not everyone has those things, but everyone has the ability to choose their response. Some people choose to forgive, to move on, to let go, and that's valid. But some people like me, choose to fight back, to make sure that people who wronged them face consequences, and that's valid too. The key is understanding what you want. Do you want peace? Then forgiveness might be your path. Do you want justice? Then standing up for yourself legally and ethically might be the answer. Do you want revenge? Then you'd better be prepared to go all the way, because half measures don't work. If you're going to burn a bridge, make sure they can't rebuild it. Yeah, but here's the most important thing. Whatever you choose it for yourself, not for them. Don't let your response to betrayal be about proving something to the people who hurt you. Okay, let it be about reclaiming your power, your future, your peace. Because at the end of the day, they don't matter. What matters is how you move forward. Again, I moved forward by making sure Claire and Marcus couldn't hurt anyone else the way they hurt me. I moved forward by building a life they could never touch. I moved forward by refusing to be a victim. And when I stood at their wedding, yes, I went to their wedding because after I destroyed them individually, they somehow found their way back to each other in their misery. I smiled, not because I was happy for them, but because I knew the truth. I knew that their entire future was built on a foundation of lies, debt, and broken dreams. And I knew that they'd spend the rest of their lives struggling, working jobs they hated, living in places they couldn't afford, fighting over money they didn't have. And I knew that every time they looked at each other, they'd be reminded of what they lost. Because they didn't just lose me, they lost the life they could have had. Claire could have been married to a successful entrepreneur. She could have lived in luxury, traveled the world, never worried about money. Marcus could have had a thriving career, stock options, a future. Instead, they have each other and nothing else. So yeah, I smiled at their wedding because I own their future, every piece of it. Like the building they'll never afford to live in, I probably own it. The jobs they'll work, I've probably invested in those companies and could influence their careers without them ever knowing. The debts they're drowning in, some of those might trace back to financial moves I made. Okay, I didn't just beat them. I became the invisible force shaping their lives, and they'll never even know. That's the real power of strategic revenge. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, effective, permanent. Okay, so if you're listening to this story and you're going through something similar, if someone has betrayed you, lied to you, tried to steal from you, here's my advice. Don't act out of anger. Anger fades, and when it does, you'll regret the impulsive things you did. Instead, take a breath, step back, think, ask yourself, what do I really want here? If you want them gone from your life, cut them out. Cleanly, legally, permanently. If you want justice, gather evidence, build a case, use the systems available to you, legal, professional, social. If you want revenge, be smart, be patient, be strategic, and make sure that when you strike, it's final. But most importantly, don't let their betrayal define you. Let your response define you. Let your strength, your resilience, your intelligence define you. Because at the end of the day, the best revenge isn't making them suffer. It's living a life so good, so full, so successful that they become irrelevant. A cautionary tale you tell at dinner parties. A chapter in your book that people read and say, wow, I can't believe you went through that and came out stronger. That's what I did. I turned the worst betrayal of my life into my greatest comeback story. And if you're facing something similar, you can too. You just have to decide that you're worth fighting for, that your future is worth protecting, that no one gets to take from you without consequences. Make that decision and then follow through. And because the world doesn't punish betrayal, you have to, and when you do, when you finally stand on the other side of it all, looking back at the ruins of their plans, smile because you won. It's been 3 years since I smiled at their wedding. 3 years since I watched Claire and Marcus stand at an altar in a courthouse, surrounded by a handful of people, promising to love each other forever. It wasn't the wedding Claire had dreamed of, no grand venue, no designer dress, no honeymoon in Bali, just a simple ceremony, rushed and quiet because they couldn't afford anything more. Okay, I didn't attend that wedding, by the way. I said I did earlier to make a point. But the truth is, I saw the photos on social media. A mutual friend posted them. Claire looked tired. Marcus looked defeated. Marcus looked defeated. And I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger, nothing. Because by that point, they were so far removed from my life that they didn't even register as real anymore. They were ghosts, echoes of a past I'd moved beyond, but I did keep tabs, not obsessively, just periodically. Out of curiosity, Marcus never recovered professionally. He works in customer service now, entry level, barely making ends meet. Claire's doing slightly better. She's a manager at a retail chain, decent pay, but nothing like the life she thought she'd have. At Kane, they live in a small apartment on the edge of town. They drive old cars. They shop at discount stores. Okay, they're not homeless. They're not starving, but they're not thriving either. They're just existing. And every time I think about that, I realize this is the real punishment, not some dramatic downfall, not some public humiliation, just the slow, grinding reality of living with the consequences of their choices. They chose greed. They chose betrayal. They chose shortcuts. And now they live a life where every day is a reminder of what they could have had. Meanwhile, I'm thriving. My company went on to even bigger successes. We were acquired, yes, but I stayed on as an advisor and investor. I've since started 2 more companies, profitable. I bought a penthouse downtown. I travel 3 months out of the year. I invest in startups. I mentor young entrepreneurs. I've dated incredible people. I've built real friendships. I've created a life I'm proud of. Okay, and the funny thing is, none of it was about them. After a certain point, my success stopped being about revenge and started being about me, about what I wanted, what I valued, what brought me joy. Claire and Marcus became irrelevant. Okay, and that, more than anything, is the real ending to this story, not the moment I destroyed them, but the moment I stopped caring, because that's when I truly won. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I wish I'd handled things differently, and honestly, no, I don't regret protecting myself. I don't regret making sure they faced consequences, but I also don't dwell on it. It's not a story I tell at parties. It's not something I brag about. It's just a chapter of my life. A hard chapter, a painful chapter, but also a chapter that taught me who I am. I'm someone who doesn't give up, who doesn't let people walk over him, who fights for what's his. And I'm someone who knows how to move on. That's the real lesson, not how to get revenge, but how to survive betrayal and come out stronger. Okay, so if you're listening to this and you're hurting, if someone has betrayed you and you don't know what to do, here's what I want you to know. You'll get through this. It doesn't feel like it now, but you'll make decisions. Some will be smart, some will be emotional. That's okay. Okay, you'll feel anger, sadness, confusion. All of it is valid. Nosh, confusion, all of it is valid. But eventually you'll reach a point where you realize they don't matter anymore. Their betrayal doesn't define you. Your response does. And once you understand that, once you truly internalize it, you're free to build, free to grow, free to live. That's where I am now. Free. And Claire and Marcus, they're still trapped in the life they built through lies. I didn't trap them there. They did that themselves. I just made sure they couldn't drag me down with them. So yeah, I smiled at their wedding, in spirit, if not in person, because I knew the truth. I owned their future, not because I control them, but because I control me, and that's all the power I'll ever need. Thank you for listening to this story. I know it was long. I know it was intense. I know some of you might think I went too far, and that's okay. You're entitled to your opinion. But I hope somewhere in this story you found something valuable. Yeah, maybe it's the reminder that you're stronger than you think. Maybe it's the realization that betrayal doesn't have to break you. Okay. Or maybe it's just the satisfaction of hearing about two people who got exactly what they deserved. Whatever you take from this, I hope it helps, because life is hard. People will hurt you, betray you, use you, but you get to decide how that story ends. You get to choose whether you're the victim or the survivor, whether you crumble or rise. A guy chose to rise, and I hope you do too. Remember, the best revenge isn't just making them pay. It's building a life so incredible that they become a distant memory, a footnote, an afterthought. That's the real victory. So go out there, protect yourself, stand up for yourself, fight for yourself. And when it's all over, when the dust settles and you're standing on the other side, smile. Because you made it, and no one can take that away from you. Thank you for listening. This is Nathan signing off.